Welcome, guys, and today we are on the sixth game of Gary Kasparov's masterpieces. And the white player is Gary Kasparov, and the black is Artur Yusupov. Both are from Russia, and it is played in the 49th Soviet Championship, round 3 at France, Russia, November 1981. The opening is Bogo Indian defense, Wade's slow variation. Uh, d4, knight f6, c4, e6, I'm sorry, e6, knight f3, bishop b4 check. The Bogo Indian defense, named after the 20th century grandmaster Efim Bogolubov, is considered playable but boring. Bishop d2, a5. This is a popular move seen in many games. g3. The fianchetto plan is a good choice against the Bogo Indian. Castles, bishop g2, b6, castles, bishop a6. The bishop doesn't set up a confrontation on h1 a8 diagonal, but instead targets the weak pawn at c4. Bishop g5. Moving the queen to c2 is more popular, with players planning to take control of the center with e4, but the pin on the knight is a bit annoying. And this alternative plan has some merit. Bishop e7. Uh, uh, Instead, black could have moved d5 here. Queen c2, knight c6, a3, h6, bishop takes f6, bishop takes f6, rook d1, queen e7, e3, rook a e8. In this slow opening, black has actually outstripped white's development, but white controls the center, and d7, d5 will not be appropriate because of the position of the white queen. Knight fd2. This is a strong move that threatens to force the knight effectively at e4, while opening up lines for the bishop g2 and threatening to disrupt black's pawn structure. In addition, the pawn at c4 is guarded so that the other knight can enter the game. g5. Black overreacts to white's positional strength. g6 would have been more solid. Knight c3, bishop g7, knight b5. Here white should have put f4, but he concentrates on the queen side, in particular the c file, and queen d8, f4, knight e7. Black has taken advantage of white's faulty plan by reorganizing his pieces so that the knight e7 can take part in the defense. Unfortunately, Yusupov soon forgets why he wanted the knight at e7. And knight f3, knight f5, queen f2. Kasparov notes that this was not the correct square for the queen. It would have been better placed at e2, where it could protect the c4 pawn. c6, knight c3, g takes f4, g takes f4, bishop takes c4. Although white is a pawn down, he is almost a piece ahead, because black's light squared bishop can't reach the king side to help in the defense. In addition, white now takes charge of the center. e4, Now Yusupov makes a major strategic error. He must return the knight to defensive post at e7, but instead goes knight d6. Uh, Here, if Yusupov had gone knight e7, then king h1, then f5. I'm sorry, not f5 by black. King h1, then f5. F5. Yes, f5 by black and e5 by white. This brings white sufficient compensation for the pawn because black's king side is very weak. So here Yusupov goes knight d6. Knight e5, f5, knight takes c4, knight takes c4. Black does not mind parting with his bishop, but the problem is that knight c4 is far away from the king side. Kasparov now chases it to an utterly useless position on back rank. b3, knight d6, e5, knight c8. At this point, white must determine his strategy for the remainder of the game. His goal is to infiltrate the king's side and exploit the weak light squares. E4. If instead knight e4, then bishop takes e4, f takes e4, and knight takes e4 is clearly better for white. So to knight c8, bishop f3, and king h7, bishop h5. The bishop must definitely get into this task, and after rook e7, now king h1, rook g8. Although this is consistent with the plan, the black chooses the wrong rook. The correct strategy would have been bishop h8 followed by rook g7, rook g7 here. So it would have been like rook after rook g1, rook g7, rook takes, bishop takes, and then again rook g1, and now queen e7. Now this square is available for the queen, which can hold the position together until the other rook reaches g8. Now if queen g3, then rook g8, and knight b1, so that here Kasparov will be able to swing his knight to h4 while the c8 knight is out of play. So here Yusupov chooses the wrong rook and puts in g8, and after rook g1, bishop h8. Now knight e4, knight e4. Now the knight has to be captured, and after f takes e4. Here the material is not important. The sacrifice is for the moving the f pawn After f takes e4, there's f5. Now rook g5, but rook g5 was a mistake. This was an error caused by time pressure. Actually, black should have bought the queen here. Queen to f8 after the rooks get exchanged, and there is f6. This could have been met by rook g7, or even the bishop could have taken this. Or even immediately rook g7. uh, but uh, but black makes the mistake of rook g5. Now rook takes g5, h takes g5, and there is f6. This not only attacks the rook but also controls c7 square and opens up the weak light squares. Uh, and king h6, and now f takes e7, queen takes e7. After bishop f7, d6, then there is rook f1, g4. Now white should get his queen and rook into the game via h4, but the black queen covers h4 now. So now bishop takes e6, again a sacrifice by Kasparov, and after queen takes e6 there is this queen h4 check. After king g7, now the next move would have been rook f6, but before that Yusupov resigned. There is a check at h6, and then rook f8 will be a checkmate. Okay guys, I hope you would have enjoyed the game. I'll meet you in the next game. Thank you.